All right, so we are going to get this going now. And my name is Jordan Claes. I am here on behalf of For the Love of Bands, and I have the great privilege to be speaking with Addison and Ray of Rose-Colored World. How's it going, guys?
Hey, what is up?
It's so great to be speaking with you today. And I have to first apologize because my silly Canadian mindset kind of overlooked the fact that yesterday was Thanksgiving for you guys and that you may be celebrating a long weekend with friends and family. So I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with me today.
It's funny you say that because when we got the original email from our managers and yesterday was one of the options, I was like, hey, he's working on Thanksgiving. I didn't realize you were in Canada, so now it makes sense.
Yeah. And then my girlfriend reminded me as well. She's like, it's also Black Friday today too. You probably ruined their Christmas shopping plans as well. So I was like, oh no.
No, we're good. We're good. We had Thanksgiving yesterday at my family's new house in Long Island. And,
Awesome.
Now we're just hanging. Yeah.
Excellent.
We're actually going to go get lunch with some old friends. So
Excellent. And you know, that kind of answered my question, but Thanksgiving was great. Saw friends and family. We're feeling nice and hungover off of turkey and stuffing and all that good stuff, I hope.
Yeah, well, we don't eat meat, but we had a lot of stuffing and carbs. We were good. And it got very cold.
Right? I have a carb over. I'm feeling it.
And Ray, I saw you post on your social there kind of a funny list of how to get along with relatives over the holidays, and I was wondering, did any of those come in handy, or was there enough pie to go around that you didn't need to worry?
Number 8 was my favorite. You can't go wrong with pie. So when in doubt, just pie it out.
Pie it out.
We set it up by getting my mom. So my mom's a Jewish mother from Long Island, New York. And it could have, the day could have, you don't know which way it was going to go. So we picked up flowers, and it set us up for success, and everything went well.
Excellent. I'm really happy to hear that. So jumping right into things now, guys. Walking on the Sun. The video is out. Congratulations. Honestly, huge milestone. As you both already know at this point, I love the track. I love the video. I thought it was absolutely great. And I was kind of wondering how you guys are feeling now. It's been like one or 2 weeks now since the video is actually released?
Yeah, I think we're feeling pretty amazing. And also, it's nice to have our first one out,
Mm-hmm.
We wrote Walking on the Sun in April,
mm-hmm.
and was fine-tuning it because we knew it was something special to kind of be the lead domino in what we were going to do in Rose-Colored World. So to finally have it out, I feel kind of relieved.
Yeah.
And just excited to now go off that.
Yeah, and I think the reception so far, what we could see has been, amazing. And at this point, it's like it's a new business and it's a new band. And it's like, we just need to keep our heads down, keep making great music, make content that is who we are every day. And, I think everything else will fall into place.
I completely agree. And I think that's another thing that you guys are very, very good at harnessing, or that you've got a good understanding, is kind of leveraging social media to your advantage and really, really connecting that way with your fans. I was sort of wondering, is that something that you consciously think of, or is it just something that just comes so naturally that it doesn't even enter into the equation at all?
I think reaching out to you specifically and this moment was more, I was just so amazed by the art, honestly. And I was like, wow, whoever wrote this, I just want to reach out and say thanks, because it means that it's resonating with people we don't know outside of our group, and then being written out to go to even more people that we don't know. And I think that it's half and half, at least in my opinion. Half of it is just this organic, I want to connect with people, which is one reason why we're making this art, to make people feel. And then also we understand that social media, by connecting that way, same thing, consciously, that it will do the same thing.
I agree. I think, touching on what she said, with you, there were a bunch of other people, so far that wrote reviews or blog posts. And let me start off by saying I'm so thankful for anyone that wrote anything, right? But when your review came out, it was this, overwhelmed. It was like, whoa, he
felt this.
He really loved this song. You know what I mean? Maybe other things, it was a favor. I don't know how it works. But yours was awesome. So thank you again for writing it from the heart. And two, social media, we know at this point has such weight. And we also have the ability, we shoot and edit all of our own stuff. So even the music video, we obviously couldn't shoot it. So we hired somebody, but we edited it together. Like in one day, we hit it and got it done. So to be able to do that, and if we just view our everyday life as moments that, you know, most people don't have, like we went on a podcast the other day in New York, and then we just put that up the same day. So we just film. We don't have a camera guy in New York with us. We film our own stuff. We make the vlog, and that's it, and put it up and let people into that and see who we are. We just want to invite everyone into our rose-colored world if they want to.
For sure.
Join.
For sure. That was the Gov's comedy podcast, if I'm not mistaken, that you were on, right? Yeah. I actually checked that out. That was a great kind of segment that you guys had, and we're going to touch on a few of those things that you discussed in that like hour that you were on there, if I'm not mistaken. Now, kind of backtracking a little bit, and I'll apologize right off the hop because I know that this is a question that you've probably been asked a million times over, and that you'll probably be asked a million times over again. But when the majority of bands have such a boring and terrible story as far as how they met or how they come up with their band name itself, I think that because you guys have such, and I said this in the review, like it's literally such a serendipitous kismet meeting. It almost seems like it was meant to be, for lack of a better word. And just for anyone who hasn't heard that story yet, who might be listening to us now, could you just briefly kind of go over that meeting of how it all came together that night where you were in the club and Tom Petty had passed away?
So I had moved to LA 6 weeks before that night. So I was fresh off the boat from Florida to Los Angeles. Didn't know many people. Was hanging out with our really good friend, Zach. I had not known Addison yet, obviously. And Tom Petty passed away. My friend Zach basically drags me out of my apartment. And it's like, we're going to this jam in Hollywood, like almost, like without me wanting to even go. We go, and he did a couple songs. My friend Zach did a couple songs. We're all hanging. And all of a sudden it was like, that whole night was like, I'm meeting people from like my soul family that I've never met before, and we're all here celebrating this guy that just passed that we all looked up to. And Addison was doing a show at the Mint.
Yeah, I was playing a show at the Mint, and then I just heard from my friends they were hanging in Hollywood, and after our show, me and my friend Genesee showed up, and Genesee was a little turned already for the night. And he walks in, I see Ray, we sit down talking. Genesee comes over and he's like, we're all gonna make a lot of money together.
Yeah, it was crazy. He's like, us three, we all gonna make a lot of money to get, like, he's from
the Bay. He's a hip hop producer and an amazing songwriter and a new dad. And we were like, okay, yeah, that sounds great. So I think like 2 days later, she came over and we wrote.
Yeah, 2 days after we met, we were already writing.
And that went great. We kept going on and off for probably 7 months. And so then I started producing for her project, and we were writing for her project. My project as well, we were both solo artists. I was more producing at the time just because I had some crazy stuff happen in my solo career. And so she got offered to play this amazing show in Venice.
Yeah, it was like a friend's birthday party in this really cool curated space.
It was so spiritual. It was awesome.
Yeah, they had a sound bath before we were performing, and it was just with a lot of people that were really, really receptive to what we were about to do. And the craziest thing was it was just kind of backing me on this drum pad, but the energy that we were giving, people lost it when we got off, and they were like, what do you guys call it? And we're like,
yeah, that's what happened. They were like, what's your band called? And we're like, wait, what? So then we were like, from that moment we were kind of like, wait, this like could make sense,
And we were driving around the car literally the day after the show talking about it, and really like making this decision of should we start a project. And I said, well, we both have, you know, the sunglasses. I remember
we were both wearing them.
And when we first were starting hanging out, he's like, why do you keep stealing my sunglasses? And I'm like, no, these are mine. And it was just like this funny thing that we both.
This was the first name that I'm terrible at making band names for my whole life. This was the first name that I was actually good.
Yeah, driving around, it was like, what about Rosecoloredworld? And it just was like, yep, that's it. Easy. I didn't fight it.
That was pretty much the story of us officially being like, okay, we're going to do this. And that was about a year ago. Mm-hmm. And then we went through some trying different genres, seeing where we were fitting. And then we landed on Walking on the Sun.
And we're like, bingo.
And we're like, this is the vibe.
Mm-hmm. Like I said, I know that that's a question that you've been asked before, but I just love hearing that story so much, and I really, really think it's a great one, and that other people are going to enjoy it as well. I wanted to kind of just briefly circle back talking about the video for a second, because I can understand, especially when it comes to your own work, you kind of go through this process where you're putting everything you have into it. It's your baby, you take care of it, and then you introduce it to the world, and then as soon as it's out, you can't really appreciate it for what it is, because you just look at it for all of the little things that it's like, oh, I would have done this a little bit differently, or, you know, it's like, I wish I hadn't have done that. I wonder, is that something that you guys enter into in any degree, or is it really just, you know, it's there and you're on to the next thing?
At this point, I think her and I think we used to be like that for sure on our own stuff and even on our own. But with this single and moving forward, it's like, it's out. It is what it is. We did our best and put everything into it. And because there's been moments like I'll watch the video. Let's say somebody's watching. I'm like, oh, I should have done. But it's like, it's beautiful for what it is, mm-hmm. and let's keep it moving. You know.
Yep, for sure.
Like if there is something that's weird about it or not caught, or you know, there's like one Easter egg which I'm not going to give up in the video because I hope somebody finds it one day. But if they do, at this point, like it'll be more, you know, like kind of entertaining than upsetting.
Yeah, I think also as an artist, your work is kind of never done, you know, mm-hmm. but you have to get to a point where you're like, I'm good with it, I'm happy with it, I'm ready to share it. Otherwise, you're just going to stay on one project your entire, you know, one song your whole life, and we have a lot more to give out.
For sure. For sure. I wish you hadn't have said that too, because now as soon as this is over, I'm going to go back and watch that video because I'm looking for that Starbucks cup on the Game of Thrones set. I can tell you that much.
It's some. I'll give you a hint. It's something like that.
Okay. Perfect. Now you did kind of mention this when we first kind of got on here, but I did kind of want to speak about Walking on the Sun, and just because, like, I know that you'd both said you were kind of both doing your own solo thing, this came together, and this is sort of the first entrance into that kind of Rosecoloredworld sound. So do you want to take Walking on the Sun and kind of use this as kind of the first step to pivot towards making an album, or is this going to be kind of like the first single that's going to be the introduction or exploration of the sound that you're currently making as a group?
Yeah. I think that in my head at least, we've kind of touched on it. I think we're going to be putting out singles, and then maybe when we get to like single 8, hold back and then release the last 3 or 4, and then all of them as an album. Mm-hmm. I don't think we're going to do the EP thing, but this is definitely the first song. What a lot of people don't know is that we actually released 3 songs last year that were a different sound. That once we found Walking on the Sun, we pulled those down. Mm-hmm. And this is definitely the first song. The next single coming out, it's called Might Like It. And it's an extension of Walking on the Sun, same band, different song. And we're pretty conscious of that. Like we really love the vibe that we created with Walking on the Sun because I think it's very true to both of our influences and who we are.
Yep. Excellent. Now, I also just kind of wanted to shift gears for a moment and just kind of touch on a few other things, like I said, because I really did like the interview that you guys gave on the Govs Comedy podcast, and I don't want to repeat any of the questions by any stretch, but I know that you had said, Addison, that you've been in LA for 7 years, if I'm not mistaken, correct? And was this the first time you returning home that you kind of saw your family and not the home that you grew up in as well. Is that right?
Correct. Yep.
So I would think, especially for someone who moved away at such a young age to such a far place, coming home for the first time and not being in your childhood home, I would think that would kind of stir up a lot of emotions and a lot of kind of conflicting ideas. Do you feel kind of validated with that event taking place? Was it at all kind of nostalgic, or did it feel different coming home? Like, does it more so feel like LA is your home now and you're just kind of a visitor when you come back to New York, or is it not that?
So it is that's a great question, because it has been a theme that, like, coming home and not going to my childhood home is definitely going to be a strange thing for me. Like, besides me growing up there, my mom and aunt grew up in that house.
Mm-hmm.
So that house was like, had a lot of memories for everyone. So for me, selfishly, I was actually just telling one of my close friends, Anthony, who's here, that selfishly, I definitely like missed my old house, and it's weird being here.
Mm-hmm.
But my family needed like, it's great to see them in this new house. It's refreshing. There's this energy is gone now that we were feeling. But as far as feeling validated, in what way? What do you mean?
I guess more so like, I would think maybe like me, I guess when you see sort of something like that taking place, you can sometimes view your life almost on two different roads simultaneously. And I guess, do you ever think, I guess maybe do you think that staying in, or moving to LA rather, do you think that you would still sort of have stumbled upon the same musical path or trajectory, or do you see sort of an instance or a moment, especially with sort of saying goodbye to your childhood home, that you no longer feel those same attachments, I guess?
If I didn't move to LA, I'm pretty certain that I wouldn't be making music in the way that I am.
Mm-hmm.
I think saying goodbye to that house is saying goodbye to a chapter for sure. LA is my home. Like, we've created a home in LA,
Mm-hmm.
but New York for sure will always be my home. I think as long as my family, I mean, this is where I grew up. It's definitely a little different now, because the town I'm in right now, even though it's 10 minutes from my old town, it isn't my town that I grew up in. So there's
Right.
definitely this removal of, like, when I used to be there, when she came last time, it was like every corner I could tell her a memory of what happened, whatever. So
Mm-hmm.
this is definitely a bit different. So I feel like I need about 2 months of being gone from here to give an accurate answer. Don't stop talking. I don't want this to stop recording because my phone's going to die, so let me just plug it in.
Sure. And I hope that I'm not going over and I know we're approaching the 20-minute mark, so if you guys need to pull the plug, you just let me know. Ray, this is actually a really good time, because since Addison's out of the scope here, I wanted to ask you, because in that interview that you guys gave on Govs, you had said that a goal of yours when you're performing is to essentially leave the audience feeling better than they were before, to kind of be that light or that ray of hope, if only for a moment. It's something that you strive to achieve as an artist. And I wanted to ask, do you feel, especially in this age of Twitter trolls and internet, that the emotional connection between the artist and their audience is still as prominent, or as prominent as it ever was, or do you kind of feel that rock and roll and music in general is slowly becoming everything it used to hate?
That's interesting.
Just moving you, sir.
For sure.
Sorry, guys. I just don't want this to lose power.
Not a problem.
Okay, we are charging now.
Beauty.
Then can I switch to like that? Let's screw everything up.
Impossible.
No, nothing's impossible. Everything's possible.
Okay, there we go. I think we're coming back to reality here.
Yeah, me too. I just want to make this stay. I don't know what to do.
Do you want to just hold it?
Yeah, let's just hold it.
Yeah.
There you go.
Great. Want to come into frame?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay, great.
Cool. So here we are. So your question was, can you repeat that one more time?
Yeah, Of
back
course
in.
I can. Of course. So I was just sort of talking about how you had mentioned that one of the things that you strive for is that emotional connection. That you want to be that ray of light for your audience, if only for that moment that they're there, and to leave them feeling better than they were when they had essentially walked into the building. And I feel that the emotional connection is something that was kind of foundational with live music. And I wanted to ask you nowadays, especially with Twitter trolls and, you know, memes and internet in general, do you feel that the emotional connection, or that artists are still trying as hard as they should to create that emotional connection with their fans, or is music kind of now becoming everything that it once claimed to hate?
I think that that's a great question. And I do believe that I personally am noticing kind of a split
Mm-hmm.
of people, the intention of why they're creating.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that as technology moves forward, it's going to be even more apparent what the intention and why, and based on the messages in their music, based on their actual live shows, how they're connecting. This, I think, music is just storytelling from
Mm-hmm.
experiences and from things that either heartbreak or happiness or whatever it is. So to answer your question, I think that there is a magic that happened in like the 60s and 70s that really took over, specifically like John Lennon. We love the Beatles, and in that era, Janis Joplin. There was a magic where I think there was no phones. Everyone was so present, and everyone was just being. And I hope that in our live shows we give that same type of magic and energy in our rose-colored world. Where sure, if you want to capture the moment for a second, fine, cool. But I hope that it's so it really enraptures you so much that you want to just stop. Stop with the bills, stop with the madness, stop with the negative,
Yep.
and just be present and hear what we're trying to do.
And I think like what we would say to them is like, your footage is not going to look as good as our camera guy's footage on stage. Like, just be here, just
Yep.
have a good time, you know.
Step out from behind the screen and just appreciate what you're seeing.
Be present. Yeah. Be here now. And
because like, what kind of show would it be if musicians like were like selfie filming them while they're playing? You'd be like, what's going on here, you know?
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And Addison, I also wanted to talk about something that you had mentioned the other day, when you had sort of were speaking about you guys being, you know, kind of a newer, or like you had mentioned, kind of a baby band at this stage. The beginnings is sometimes about catering your performance or your set to the audience, because sometimes you're in front of a crowd that isn't necessarily there to see you play. Mm-hmm. It reminded me of something that Noel Gallagher recently said, where he said fans don't know what the fuck they want. Nobody wanted Jimi Hendrix until Jimi Hendrix came along. Right. And I thought it was funny because your dad kind of reiterated that point in that same podcast. He was like, well, you know, Jimi Hendrix got booed off when he went to open up for the Monkees because no one wanted to see Jimi Hendrix. They were there to see the Monkees. Right. So I wanted to sort of ask, what are some of the things that you do or that you can do as an artist to try to make them give a shit? Or are you just more so focused on delivering in that scenario the best possible version of yourself that nothing else really matters?
Yeah, I think the thing that we're noticing now is like, if we're not thinking about that and we get into our flow state, it's all good, and the people that are supposed to like fall in love with the project will. It's only when we are thinking about it and we're in our heads, because everything's energy, even if people like don't want to talk about that or think about that, you know, they know what something feels like. And as long as we're being the most authentic version of ourselves,
it translates.
That's all we can do, right? Because if somebody doesn't like us for being our authentic selves, that's fine. Like, it's just not for you, you know? You would just keep driving down the highway. But if you see our Rose-Colored World billboard and you want to come hang out with us, then come hang out with us.
I think a really neat epiphany I had recently, I was telling actually one of my best friends, is it's one thing to like do what you love every day, but then the person that you're doing life with, they get to do what they love every single day. And then we also, you know, care about each other so much. So like there's this trifecta of this such powerful force, which is love that you just you see exude from wherever we're playing, whether it's a living room or a backyard or a huge venue. And I think that in itself kind of sets this project apart than a lot of other projects, because it's from that pure intention, from the lyrics
as long as
to
we're
the
good,
delivery. Yeah,
and we stay high vibe with each other and our music, then everything else seems to work out.
Yeah, because that was a good point that you guys had made when you were asked about the possibility of adding a band member into the midst. Like you made a really good point where you were saying, like, we do life together. Like, it isn't like we're calling band practices and arranging a time where we need to sit down and jam it out. Like, Addison starts noodling on the guitar, and then I whip out the audio note and recording it instantly. So it's not something that you have to kind of proactively plan for. So I think that's a really, really interesting dynamic as well. When, again, funny how this seems to be happening, because it feeds into my next question that I wanted to ask you guys about another really, really great point that you had brought up. And I was so glad that you did. Because I am a huge Fleetwood Mac fan, and of course Buckingham Nicks as well is very near and dear to my heart. And I just kind of wanted to speak about the influence that Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks musically and kind of collaboratively, I suppose you could say, for lack of a better word, have had on you and continue to have on you. And do you see parallels in your own creative process? Does that intimidate you, inspire you? How does that work out?
I think it's more of an inspiration than anything. My one of my first solos ever was Landslide by Fleetwood Mac.
Love it.
Steve. And I always felt an immense, deep connection to the song at like 9 years old, like 8, 9 years old. Didn't understand how many layers it had until I peeled it back as I would grow up. And I've sang it throughout my life, and I'm in my 20s now, and I'm still singing it and understanding it. And when this project was being created, I went down a Stevie Nicks Fleetwood Mac hole and saw their dynamic, and really was like, this was like months after we just created the project, and I was like, holy shit, like this is so similar. And it was more not intimidating, more parallel, more like you said, meant to be right track, because of what I'd been inspired by, and it aligning now with the truth of what we were doing, you know?
It was so strange when, like, I think it was happening once we found this sound, and then we were kind of doing more harmonies. And because when Walking on the Sun happened, it felt very, like, the chorus that we wrote first felt very, like, free and hippie-ish. And that was, like, so our vibe. And we were, like, it just made you want to just, kind of lose it. And then you said Fleetwood Mac first, and then once we put the song out, then we've been hearing it, and it's like every time, obviously, she lights up.
Yeah,
like, that's amazing.
Yeah,
because it's one thing to say it to yourselves, but then when someone
it's
else
also
says
this not to get all spiritual here, but divine masculine, divine female, both with the harmonies, with the lyrics, and it appealing to both of the masses. I think that's a big power there. And to have universal messages that translates across both genders and different ages, it makes something timeless. And I think that's important in art.
And I think what we're doing is, I think it kind of takes people by surprise. Like, I'm playing guitar, they see a girl, they just assume that she's going to be the singer. And then they see us both sing, and then they assume that she's going to be singing high all the time. And it's like, oh wait, he's singing. So I like that. That's because we're learning as we go, right? This is our first song, so we're starting to hear. We've just started doing interviews with the project, so it's really interesting hearing what people pick up on, like how you wrote about it, or how they were asking questions the other day. Really fascinating. I love it.
No, and I think you kind of hit the nail on the head, is that you're kind of shattering those preconceptions, going to what you said, Ray, about kind of divine masculinity or divine femininity, and the approach to making music, like you said, Addison. And I think one of the gentlemen who was hosting the podcast said it as well. He's like, oh, like you're not doing the high harmony, Ray, like you're hitting those high notes. And I think anytime that you can do that to an audience, where you can give them something that they don't expect or they're not anticipating, you really have something special. And I think that is really what is setting you guys apart, in my own opinion.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're very welcome. Now, I know that we've been here for a while. I don't want to waste any more of your time or day. If I can, I just want to fire through a few quick and easy questions, I
Yeah,
promise, and then we'll get
Yeah.
you off and out.
of course.
So, first off, what are the differences between busking in Hollywood and busking in New York, and which crowds are more brutal?
So busking in from my experience, when we went let's also to be fair, we didn't really busk the other day in Hollywood. I think
Okay.
the intention was to busk and film, and then when we got there, it's just not where we went was not the correct environment to do
Okay.
that. And now that I think about it, like I would never go busk in Times Square when I live here, in New
Yep.
York. So New York, I never, if I were to compare them both, like busking in Times Square and busking in Hollywood Boulevard, it'd probably be pretty similar.
Yeah.
Okay.
But when I used to busk, back in the day now, in New York, I would go to like subways where no one was down there, and then every like 10 minutes a new subway train would get out and there'd be 40 people. And so I would wait, the subway would open, and I would just belt into a chorus for 20 seconds, make, $5-10, and then I just chill for the next one. So I think I want to feel like Hollywood, LA would be tougher,
Okay.
just because they're desensitized to a lot there.
Yeah, it's also like a sense, I think, of like entitlement or something. I don't know. It's a very different energy where, yes, I think people are very atomized in New York in their own worlds and whatever, but there's a appreciation of it, of the art.
Well,
in
because
a
they're not
different
seeing
space.
the art as much as we are in LA.
For
Like
sure.
New York City is like an abundance of every business, every type of person. In LA, it's mainly entertainment, entrepreneurs,
like, we see this.
creatives, so it's like, yeah, I would say, yeah,
New
that's
York.
my answer.
Okay. Okay. Do you feel, or actually, what's the number one mistake that all new bands or artists make when they come to LA for the first time?
That they think everything is
Like
gonna
I'm
happen.
here, it's great, everything, like I
Mhm.
made it. I'm in LA, and it's and I think
party too much.
yes,
Oh,
partying
okay.
too much, getting wrapped up in the scene. I mean, there's something to do every single night, musically or non-musically, and a place to go, and a person to see, and a celebrity here, there, and it's kind of having the discipline to be like, I'm not gonna go to that this night. I'm
Yeah,
not
I was
gonna go
gonna
to
say
do
that.
that.
Like, if we could give, rather than like, what do they do wrong?
The
What we
advice.
could give
Yeah.
advice for is when you get there, like, yeah, have a good time, but
Mhm.
remember why you're there. Like, what's the mission? Because time out there doesn't
It doesn't exist the same.
So
Mhm.
like, yeah, I've been there for 7 years and it doesn't feel like that at all. And
Right.
I didn't like get disciplined. Like I was living I'm an artist, all right, when I want, do this, blah, blah, for so long.
Mhm.
And then the way we live now is like so different. Like wake
It's-
up, gym, schedule,
Yeah.
make sure, because like, we're running our own label really with everything we're doing, from content to video to music to, whatever.
It was also like interesting too because I've only been out there for 2 years. I just
Mhm.
hit my 2-year mark. So it was like our meeting. One of the cosmic things that happened was, for me, it was like, I'm in Hollywood, and he's like, okay, I've been here. Let me, So that balance out, it was like I brought this magic back to him of him being here, but he brought this like, hey, it's not really necessarily what you think.
Mhm.
And we just really balanced our strengths and weaknesses together to be able to get this project off the ground the way it has. So
And now when we go out, it's like, because we kept our head down for so long and just worked on the project, now we're going out with our product.
check out the song, check out the, and it's something we're proud of. Because at first I'm like, we're partying and meeting these people for what? Like, what
Mhm.
does it matter if I meet the biggest exec of anything? I have
Yeah, it's like,
nothing
oh yeah, we're
to,
working on
Yep.
it, And that's why, going back to the first question that you asked, it's so nice to have our first song out.
Yeah. Now, would you say that early on it's more important to learn how to navigate success or failure?
The failure is just going to happen no matter what. I think in
Mhm.
anything you do, like if you take risks, you're going to fail.
Mhm.
And I don't want to call it failing though.
yeah.
It's just,
It's like failing forward.
yeah.
There's actually
Experience by another name.
Yeah, yeah.
We don't win we don't lose. If we don't win, we learn.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it is.
I am a nerd for growth and learning and figuring out new ways to do things. And we both have had our fair shares of setbacks and moments, but in that is like in the dark is where you grow, is what I've noticed. And even when we met it both times where we both were not so great. He had gone through some stuff with his solo career. I had gone through some stuff personally and then got out to LA. So we both were at this lull. And in that dark is when this project was born, you know? So it's important to fail. It's important to screw up and learn from that and see what is this trying to show me.
Now, last one, and I really want you both to dig deep for me on this one, because I understand that both of your fathers are drummers, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
Correct.
So I'm not going to ask you to pick a side because I think that would just be too easy. But if the two of them were to have a drum off, which would be the one to take it way too seriously?
Oh, for sure, your dad.
For sure, my dad.
My dad would be like, I'm not playing. I'm not doing it after him.
My dad's very competitive. He grew up with 3 other brothers, so there's 4 boys in the house, and he still plays out. My dad, he's 63, he's still drumming and doing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and her dad is way more of a drummer. Like, not to take anything away from my dad.
We love you, Kenny.
Yeah, we love you. And he's like the most supportive of our group ever. But he never like really gigged out too much. He loves music so much, and he plays drums. Her dad has been playing out and in bands, you know, forever.
He's been playing drums since he was like 8, and he's still playing. He's at 63, still playing.
And I'm actually a drummer first.
Okay.
So I grew up playing drums in bands, and yeah, when I was about, I think like 17, my dad was like, "Okay, you're better than me."
And just lastly, guys, for everyone who's been listening along, where can people find you? Where can we go to get more Rose-Colored World? When can we expect more new music and all that good stuff?
So remember, Rose-Colored World is all one word. That's
one word.
You have to find us.
No spaces.
Instagram. I mean, I'm sure you'll put all the links for that.
Oh yeah.
Stuff.
No, of course.
But we're on every platform, as well as TikTok now. So you can see
I'm being really goofy and strange.
But our next single, Might Like It, is supposed to be coming out in January.
Okay.
Maybe early February.
So we're about to shoot that video. We're finishing that track up. We have 2 more behind that are ready to go. And this year is just going to be full of releases, shows, and just doing more of this. So
just a rose-colored year.
Just a rose-colored year. So whoever
we're entering the roaring 20s, so we have to kick it off.
Here we are.
Well, guys, honestly, I seriously cannot thank you enough for taking time out of your family long weekend to talk with me today. It's been so much fun, extremely informative. On behalf of myself and For the Love of Bands, I wish you nothing but success, and I just can't wait to follow along because I know that you guys are going to be great.
Thank you so much for taking your time, and you know, we're family now, so.
Oh, honestly, let's I'm going to just